Court is in session. A verdict is in. No appeal on the docket today, just my own sin. The walls cold and pale, the cage made of steel. Screams fill the room. Alone I drop and kneel. This is the Community Solutions Podcast. Jason Bradley, Andrew Richter from deep in the bowels of our underground lair, where we're talking more smack than Jasmine Crockett at a professional slap contest.
Oh, boy. Well, Hot Wheels Crockett?
Yes. Oh, boy.
You know, I got to say something here. Why is it, when you talk about the original squad,
Yeah.
I have to give AOC some credit because they're all gone or dropped by the wayside.
Except for Ilhan Omar,
She's still there, but
Yeah.
she's not really doing anything. I mean, not.
Yeah.
But everybody else from that crew is pretty much gone except her.
Yeah, Cori Bush is gone. Oh, no, that's not true. Ayanna Presley's still there. She's still...
Raheem Tlaib's still there?
Yeah, she's still there. They still talk a lot.
Oh, okay. But it doesn't seem like their profile.
Cori Bush got sent packing,
Yeah.
and then who was that other one that pulled the fire alarm? That guy.
I don't know, but he got ousted as well.
Yes, he did. Thank goodness.
So, Jay, I have no idea on the song.
No?
No.
Ooh,
No idea. Was I supposed to? Are you a little surprised?
a little surprised. My Own Prison from Creed.
Oh, okay. I know them.
Yeah. That was their first single.
Yeah, that's John Fogerty.
Yes. Yeah, that's who
Creed
that is.
Revival?
Yes. My word.
Yeah, all right. I do know who they are.
Yes. That was their first single off the My Own Prison
How far are we
album.
going back for that?
Oh, goodness. That was 97.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Yeah. So not too far. Doesn't feel that far, but I guess when you say 1997 out loud, kind of feels far away, doesn't it? I mean, that's almost 20 years ago,
28 years.
28 years. Yeah, almost 30 years.
Wow.
Oh, my goodness.
God, you're old.
I don't think I was alive when this came out.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't even go there.
This is now classic rock. That makes me feel sad.
Yeah. I tell you what, the time last summer where I heard, I'm trying to think of what station this was. They played the top hits from 40 years before.
Yeah.
1984 from that week.
Oh, goodness. Yeah.
Born in the USA was the number one song at
Yeah.
that time by Bruce.
Yeah.
And it was 40 years. And I'm just thinking, wow.
Yeah.
40 years. I mean, I do remember that song very, very well.
Oh, yeah.
You know, so.
Sometimes I'll go into Spotify and I'll just bring up a year and then I'll pick, they have playlists with like the top 100 songs from that year. And I'm like, oh my goodness.
Yeah,
you
that's
know?
like
it's
oldies.
so good. Yeah.
You know, like I know what my parents felt like 20 some odd years ago when Cool 108 used to play the 50s and 60s.
Yeah.
You know, because now oldies are Whitney Houston. That's
Right.
oldie.
Yeah.
I know.
Right. Direct.
So I'll tell you what, it's scary getting old. I mean, it really is. It's just, I had to schedule, and I you know, I'm as honest with the audience as I want to be here, but I just scheduled a colonoscopy.
Really?
And
have fun with that.
And I am a guy who never goes to the doctor ever.
Right.
But I don't want to say badgered into it, but I decided to do it.
Yeah.
And I think I don't think there's anything wrong, but
Yeah.
so yep, they're gonna get out a lantern and peek inside or whatever
Yeah.
they do,
feel
around.
Yeah, I did mine, a year ago or something like that. And the worst part of the whole deal, you know, they tell you,
It's the prep.
when you drink the fluid,
Yeah, cement mixer.
No, it was fine. It didn't bother me at all.
Really?
Didn't bother me at all. The worst part, there's this other stuff that I had to drink before I went to bed. I threw up 3 times. I got up in the middle of the night twice.
I told you not to. I told you not to put any straight Jambouie in there.
It was whatever it was. It was the worst. I immediately.
Jay, you're
felt
not supposed
sick.
to throw up. You're supposed to clean out the other head.
I know. I couldn't help it. I got into the shower in the morning. I threw up. It was awful. I mean, but by then my system was so empty. I'm not throwing up like vomiting like
spaghetti.
that. Yeah, it's
Oh, that's so awful.
Yeah, it's awful.
Well, I got that to look forward to.
Yeah,
Thanks.
enjoy that.
Well, I don't know. You know what my guess is? I won't need another one for 20 years. That's my guess.
Yeah, well, they say every 10.
Yeah, but who do they know? I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. My dad didn't have one until he was like 65.
Yeah?
Of course, they didn't recommend him. You know, when he was in his 40s, they didn't recommend him back then.
Right.
So, but it is something that's, for whatever reason, is getting more and more prevalent.
Yeah.
Like colon cancer, and then, of course, men for prostate. I don't know why. But
Yeah.
it's just...
Because we eat garbage? I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean, maybe that's got to be what it is. Just a combination of factors like that.
Yeah.
Obviously, heredity plays a role.
Yeah.
There's a lot of reasons. So,
But you got to ask yourself, when there's a rise in something when it wasn't there before, like food allergies, like autism, why?
diabetes.
Yeah, why? You know,
Yeah, no one asked
diabetes, I think we understand because it's blood sugar, and that's definitely when you eat terrible.
It
know,
is, and it's a
type
combination.
2.
Yeah, and it's a combination of that and a lack of exercise. And,
Yeah.
there's all sorts of factors there.
Yeah.
Food allergies. Why? I don't know.
I don't know if I knew anybody that was allergic to peanuts when I was a kid.
I know now kids are allergic to fresh air, and
Yeah.
why I have no idea. Dairy's become another one. Just a generally speaking, I think that lactose intolerant they call it.
I remember some people when I was younger, not many.
I remember mild cases
Yeah.
of it, but not, have half a Twinkie and you're gonna,
Right.
shoot out a a rocket launcher.
Well, we got our milk from the farm when we were growing up. Growing up in Proctor there, I was on the Duluth-Proctor border pretty much. And there was a farm probably 10 minutes away as you go out into Midway Township, and we would always go get fresh milk from the farm. And I don't think it was still raw milk. I have had raw milk. I love raw milk. I wish that
Really?
they would lift the
Why
restrictions
Why
on that.
is there so many restrictions on that?
Oh, they say, the government, of course, says that you
FDA.
can get really sick if you don't pasteurize it. But there's
Or are
questions about whether the pasteurization process is causing some of the issues with lactose intolerance.
Yeah, it's probably
other things.
Probably both,
Yeah.
because you're not used to having it.
But people have drunk raw milk for forever. Forever. When did
Since the
Louis
first cow.
Pasteur come up with the pasteurization process? Like
1870 maybe?
Yeah. So you have how many centuries of people drinking cow's milk, and the Amish still do it.
Yeah, I don't know. Does it have to do with length of storage or?
Yeah, well, that's it. And we really don't need it now because we have refrigeration systems that can take care of all that.
Yeah.
It really was because there wasn't proper refrigeration back in the 1800s, and bacteria would grow in the milk, and so it would cause you to get sick. Well, we don't need that because everything gets refrigerated right out of the cow into the store and into your house.
Yeah.
We don't need it anymore. And if it's making people sick, I think we need to look at it and get rid of it.
Yeah, there's something else going on. Yeah.
People in other countries, the way that they eat, the diet that they have, they do not have the same food allergies we have. People who have food allergies in this country will go eat in another country, go live there for a month. They're fine. They come back, they eat again, they get the same allergies back.
I've heard people come into this country and they just gain 30 pounds.
Yeah.
They eat the same diet and they gain 20, 30
Yeah.
pounds.
That's all the additives.
Why do we add it all? I mean, what's the
Money.
So it's all about the corporate farming,
Yeah.
and the corporate
This lobby,
grocery
that
chains.
lobby. And, yeah. In other countries, they use different food colorings than we use.
No,
more
a couple
natural.
of them have already been pulled.
Oh, yeah.
Some of the dyes and stuff have
They
already.
should be, because some of them, what they use to get those dyes, you would never put in your body, but because it's below an acceptable amount.
Right.
But when you have it in 3, 4, 5, 6.
cereal every day, which a lot of kids do.
Sure.
They eat their Apple Jacks or whatever.
Yeah.
And so they're consuming little amounts, but it's day after day after day after day
Right.
after day.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is amazing. And I gotta say too, there's a handful of people, Bobby Kennedy's one, who have literally I've learned like all of this from.
Yeah.
There's Jillian Michaels and a few other people.
Yep.
There's a core of like 5 people who literally have just educated this country on it. And it's so much what I know versus what I knew like a year or two ago.
Yeah.
Is amazing.
But Alex Jones used to talk about it way back
in America.
They put fluoride in the water.
He's one of the people I learned about that from. He was like, why? Why is there affecting our teeth? It's what's the reason? I got to tell this Alex Jones. I got a little opening here about the Trump assassination attempt, and but I got to say something about Alex Jones. When Trump picked J.D. Vance.
Yeah.
Okay. I remember I was getting to one of my jobs when I heard it come over Twitter.
Yeah.
And there was kind of a rumor that he was the front. I think it was the first day of and it relates to the assassination attempt because it was like 2 days after that.
Yeah.
And Alex Jones the day before was going on and on about how they were trying to bump off Trump and blah, blah, blah. He had predicted it and this and that.
Yeah.
And so the first person I see on Twitter, literally, Jones might have been tipped off by Tucker or somebody that Vance was coming.
Yeah.
But he recorded, I don't know how he recorded this video that was 10 minutes long, 5 minutes after Vance was announced. But whatever, he goes, and Alex Jones just going, God, Trump just stuck into this group and stuck into that group. And J.D. Vance, what a pick. Blah, blah, blah. He just told the security state to stop it. He just was a one-man party. It was just hilarious. I wish I could. He posts so much stuff.
I know.
Yeah. So it was great.
Although he posts, there's a lot of places that won't have him, but might
Twitter's
be able to
one
find
of the
that.
only ones that never regulates anything he
Right.
does. So again, pray for Elon's health.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Truth Social as well allows him, but
Yeah, I have to check that out sometime because I'm not on that. But,
yeah.
It's Alex Jones and Trump. They're the only people I know who are on Truth Social.
Yeah. We'll have to get into this a little bit, like when we get into the JFK stuff, which we'll do on a future show.
Some of that,
that I guess apparently one of Jones's employees got offed at some point recently, and supposedly he was also tipped off. Jones was. I'm trying to remember who tipped him off. It was Tucker or somebody else. I have to see if I can find out that there was a hit out on him as well.
Would surprise me.
Yeah,
would surprise me whatsoever. Would-be assassin Thomas Matthew Crooks may have had an accomplice. Anybody in the mainstream media report this?
No.
The New York Post, I think Cash is doing some cleaning over there.
Yeah.
Because now the FBI is starting to leak stuff out. I think the conservative sites are kind of picking up on it.
Yeah.
Here, let me tell you where I'm at on this, Jay. And I don't know where you are on this because we know more about the Natalie Holloway case than we know about, no offense. I mean, I don't mean to make light of other cases where people died and stuff.
Yeah.
But why do we hyper focus on Casey Anthony or Scott Peterson or Gabby Petrito or Gypsy Rose? Why are these cases covered wall to wall and a presidential assassin we know nothing about? Nothing.
Right.
We still know nothing.
Yep.
And there's back and forth as to whether Cash is being obstructed, and he certainly is by people below him, which to me gives him grounds to fire them all, and maybe he's in the process of that.
Yeah.
My guess is that stuff's starting to come out as a way of kind of pushing this story.
Right. Well,
out.
he should. I mean, with all of the stuff going on, the Epstein files are supposed to be out.
Right. And all of the JFK stuff's supposed to be out unredacted, with the exception of Social Security numbers and just a few other things.
Yeah.
And it comes out 80,000 pages, totally disorganized, not labeled, not. That's why it's taking so long.
Yeah.
Trump went off about it the other day. I don't know if you saw that.
Yeah.
Coming out of the Kennedy Center, he was refrained, Trump, but he wasn't happy with what that they're, and the MLK files still have not been released. I don't know what's going on.
Or the RFK files.
Right. I mean,
you'll have to take a look with the JFK stuff. Glenn Beck just released a special on that, and he actually used AI to go in and search for.
I know about that, but I have not. I've not read it. But I mean, it is scary when they get caught.
Yeah.
Oh no, we don't have a file on Oswald. What are you talking? Oh, well, it turns out you were following him since 1959.
Yeah.
So, I mean, anyway. So I'm at one of four. I'm just going to go through this quick, Jay. I'm at one of four places with the crooks. And by the way, the second would-be assassin at Mar-a-Lago goes on trial in August. Any coverage of that?
No,
not a drop. What is with the media blackout?
Yeah.
Anyway, there's one of four possibilities. You have to look at the assassination attempt through a couple prisms.
Yeah.
Prism number one is, well, it just happened. It was bad luck. Mistakes were made, blah, blah, blah. The sort of typical government response to something. Nobody takes accountability, typical government thing. B, Trump was made deliberately vulnerable by denying him security, by not, he was deliberately left vulnerable, and they were just hoping somebody would bump him off.
Yeah.
Okay. C encompasses B, but also I would argue that there's some is there a Manchurian candidate thing to this? It's kind of
the return of MK Ultra.
Yeah, it's like the Russia hoax thing. Is Crooks the tool of some John Brennan type, but that the left hand didn't know what the right hand was doing, and then D, the government just tried to bump him off.
Yeah,
I'm vacillating between B and C right now. I'm sort of going back and forth between the two. I don't think there's evidence that yet, anyway, that this was an attempt, a JFK style, that the government trying to kill him. I refuse to believe that it's just one of those things. The timing of this, too, this is after the debate with Biden and before the Republican convention. There were rumors going around that Trump was going to bring J.D. Vance to that rally and introduce him. And Trump thought, we're not prepared. We don't have a speech yet.
Yeah.
Said the people close to Trump think that news hadn't leaked out yet. The Stephen Millers, the Susie Wiles, the people like that. I don't know, though. I just can't dismiss that. I mean, imagine Biden's a corpse. Trump gets killed.
Yeah.
What happens to the Republican convention 2 days later? He hasn't named a successor.
Right.
So there's no obvious guy there to take the mantle. What happens on Monday?
Well, I suppose all the people that suspended their campaign unsuspend their campaign.
You're doing what the Democrats would have done had they not anointed Harris. You have an open convention.
Right.
You have a 2-day open convention with no notice.
Yeah.
Trump's campaign cash frozen.
Yeah.
So the timing of it just always scares me a little bit. And the basic things we don't know. However, the New York Post, and again, Thomas Crooks left no manifesto. We have the FBI has seized his laptop, encrypted apps on his phone. We know nothing. However, the FBI is now publicly speculating that he had an accomplice. Independent investigators still claim the FBI is suppressing info. I don't understand why Congress isn't all over this. I mean, Congress could shut the FBI down.
Yeah.
What is the deal here? So I don't know. There's let me see here. Yeah, there's a guy, Doug Hagman, whose team of 6 investigators have been working the case for months, And he says, quote, "We don't think he acted alone. There's a lot of coordination. In my view, Crooks was handled by more than one individual. And I wouldn't preclude the possibility there were people at the rally itself helping him." That's bombshell.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, it certainly is.
Here's the other. Do you know this too? That Crooks got off 8 shots. Okay.
Yeah.
And there was a local cop who took a shot at him right after the 8th shot.
Yeah.
Didn't hit him, apparently. It might have hit the gun or something. And then it was 15 seconds after that the Secret Service finally shot him. Now, that's an eternity.
It is.
So the entire time that Trump gets tackled, he gets up and asks where his shoe is.
Yeah.
And then he pumps his fist to the crowd. Then the shot was taken. That's how long it took to locate. They didn't have eyes on it. Didn't have eyes on that build. Now, if you're Trump, you could. If there's pictures where you could see Crooks at Trump's like 2:00.
Yeah.
You can literally see him.
Huh.
And there were no eyes on him at all.
Yeah.
You tell me that's mistakes were made. Just an unfortunate thing. We don't know what happened.
Yeah.
No one gets fired. No one's been dismissed that I know of. These people are protecting Trump right now.
Yeah.
A little scary.
Well, later down in that same article, I don't know if you saw that because it's horrible with all the
the
little
New York
ads and
Post has
pictures.
their drop downs.
I know. Says that Hagman said one of the electronic devices geolocated with Crooks at several different places at the time of the shooting is still pinging today at Bethel Park High School. Wait, so you're telling me that they haven't recovered this yet, or what is it pinging? I don't understand.
And here's the other part too. You know, the media tried to apply I call it the Columbine narrative to him.
Yeah.
You know, oh, he was an outcast. Oh, he was picked on. Oh, he was, and even that wasn't even true in the case of Columbine. But America First Legal sued to uncover like his academic. He was a really good student.
Yeah.
He was like an A-B student. He's
really
no dummy. Yeah. He was a very smart guy. So the whole narrative of the guy who gets D pluses, who gets picked on and sits at home all day, that is not Thomas Matthew Crooks.
Huh.
So it's sort of and he was actually accepted to Robert Morris University, and he was going to start there in the fall of 2024, which makes no sense.
Right. Why would you go down that road if you're going to go on a suicide mission?
No idea. And they've leaked he Googled Trump and Biden. Well, what does that mean? I've Googled Joe Biden before.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know, but I tell you what, this is getting swept under the rug, and I hope that it might take a while for everything to come out, but I don't understand it. The FBI also has no jurisdiction to say, well, hey, sorry, ongoing investigation, I can't comment. No, you can comment. The perpetrator's dead, and you don't have Fifth Amendment protection. You have it for yourself personally, but you can't refuse to answer questions because, we're still talking. We're still figuring stuff out. It's been 8 months.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you what, if I were Pam Bondi, and I don't know that this is worth it, but it might be to get some info, I would indict Kim Cheadle and her second in command for perjury, because I would even take Alejandro Mayorkas and do it as well, because there's no way that they don't know basic answers to questions. Like, who turned down Trump's request for more security? What was the reason? Yeah. And they claim they don't know. Now, that's a lie. They know the answer. Mm-hmm. Now, they may not have done it personally. That's possible. But they know who did or what position it would be that would do that or where it had to go up the chain.
Uh-huh.
It's an absolute lie that they don't know the answer to that. And I think an indictment might get them to talk a little bit.
Yeah. And I don't understand this. The Pittsburgh County Medical Examiner did not perform toxicological tests for pharmaceuticals, or at least did not include them in the autopsy report. Even more oddly, Crook's body was released to his parents 8 days after the shooting without most officials involved in the investigation knowing, and was promptly cremated. Haven't we learned our lesson with this yet? Like when we dumped Osama bin Laden at sea before anybody had a chance to verify he was dead?
Yeah.
Really? We're gonna rush to cremation here?
There's people who die of natural causes whose bodies get held for longer than that.
Yeah.
I shouldn't laugh, but it's that's just brutal.
Yeah. It just, when there are that many blunders, you have to start asking yourself, was it on purpose? Was it staged? Those are the only logical questions to ask. It doesn't mean they were. Obvious. Sometimes the truth is stranger than fiction or whatever. But you, as a reasonable, rational person, have to start asking those questions, because you can't continue to live in a fairy tale that everything works smoothly. Jeffrey Epstein, he didn't hang himself with paper sheets. There's no way that happened. But yet the cameras happened to go off in that area at the same time that this happened and that happened.
It's another thing from the Kennedy files was that Lee Harvey Oswald, when he went down to the Mexican consulate, supposedly the camera wasn't working that day and nobody got a...
Oh, really?
Just happened
to be. Just like... outside the DNC on January 6th. There just happened to be a bomb that was outside the DNC when Kamala Harris was there, and nobody rushed to do anything. And the cameras happened to move away at the opportune time for certain things to happen, and
I tell you
whatever.
I want in the FBI, I want to get to the bottom of the January 6th stuff, because I want to know what the FBI plants were doing in there.
Yeah.
That's another, because I believe that. I believe there's no question about it. That
absolutely.
It was a false flag. I mean, there's been great reporting on this from some people.
Well, you had all these rallies that were leading up to January 6th, where you had people from Antifa and other radical groups that were protesting and starting fights and being violent, and then all of a sudden, they're nowhere to be found on January 6th. Like they weren't dressed up as Trump people and starting stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
There's no
You'll
doubt.
never convince me of that.
Yeah, there's no doubt.
Never.
Anyhow.
Now that we've been marked for misinformation, malinformation, and disinformation,
okay, Jay.
Yes,
the lawfare against President Trump, a lot of people think is over. You know what it's done? It's shifted.
Yeah.
Now, instead of going after him as a person when they couldn't beat him in an election,
yes,
now they're using the courts to try to stop more or less anything he's doing. The opposition groups, and there's a lot of them. Oh, excuse me. ACLU is one. Southern Poverty Law Center's another.
Yep.
All these LQQGB, LMNOP groups are banding together to cherry pick judges in certain jurisdictions to issue injunctions or, trying to stop President Trump from governing is what I would argue, and doing what he promised to do.
Right.
Some of these cases border on beyond ridiculous.
Right.
Some of them have some merit, but the courts aren't the the place to litigate this. I mean, this
exactly.
It's winning elections and passing laws, and that's the process.
Right.
There's a handful of them I think Trump's going to lose.
Yeah.
And there's a Supreme Court I don't 100% trust.
Right.
And I'll get to that in a minute because some of their decisions make me nervous that either Trump will get a partial win. Now, look, or he may not get a win at all. Now, we've talked about this previously, how fast and furious and he still is. I mean, he's still moving at a breakneck pace.
Absolutely.
And these lawsuits, many of them, I think, know that they're going to fail. But the point is to put quicksand or put cement here, wet cement, in Trump moving quickly, so that he's bogged down in legal stuff and not really governing.
Right.
Now, some of these cases, I cannot believe have gotten a hearing. Okay?
Oh, I can't.
And one that I cannot believe.
Yeah.
This is they cherry pick a judge in Boston.
Yeah.
The Haitian American United Inc. is suing the Homeland Security Department. Okay, they the Secretary Mayorkas, probably the worst cabinet secretary in the history of Western civilization.
He should have been, he was impeached. He should have been removed from office. And that they wouldn't even bring that up was criminal. I can't. Just beyond comprehension how he's the most incompetent, literally the most incompetent person. You saw FEMA, you saw the border. Listen to this lawsuit. Okay, so people from Haiti and Venezuela were granted something called temporary protected status. Yes.
Okay, during the Biden administration. And on July 1st, 2024, Secretary Mayorkas extended this policy for another 18 months.
Huh.
So through the year 2025.
Yes.
The lawsuit argues, because this was reversed by, technically the case is against Kristi Noem, the new head of DHS.
Right.
But obviously acting at Trump's, I'm sure, request or knowledge, to revoke this. The lawsuit argues that a new secretary cannot do that, which is so absurd.
Yes.
It's almost, so what? So if Mayorkas would have put it there for 50 years, the next 12 administrations would have to. I mean, come on, you get a new secretary to do administration, and this lawsuit basically argues that they're not allowed to make policy.
Yeah, that's ridiculous.
How does that get a hearing?
Well, because
I mean, I would laugh
Trump.
out loud if somebody brought that to me. What are you talking about?
Yes.
That you can't, that a new administration can't change something. I mean, if that were the case, nothing could ever change.
Right.
Trump should make executive orders good for 1,000 years, and now nothing can ever change.
Right. Well, and I get it, but I don't. Like this whole TPS thing was supposed to be for Haitians that were struggling because of the 2010 Haitian earthquake. Now, I was there. I saw it.
I was gonna bring that up. Yeah.
But Haiti is it's a complicated thing because you do have these Haitians that are still today living in squalor because they have not been able to rebuild Haiti. It is still devastated from a 2010 earthquake because it's corrupt and it's run by gangs. Now that is the problem. When you have a country that is run by gangs, violent gangs that kidnap people, that kill people, torture people, murder people, and you possibly are bringing those people into our country under a protected status, you are going to run into problems. And I know there was video footage of specifically a Haitian man that was trying to be apprehended, and shortly after Trump was inaugurated, and it was, he was breaking a law.
Yeah, I know, but you're telling me a non-citizen breaking the law has to have an indefinite stay in this country? That's absurd.
It's absurd.
It violates federal law, first off. Immigration, illegal immigrants can be taken at any time with no statute of limitations. Mm-hmm. That's the law. Yeah. Now, there are a few exceptions that require some due process. But you're a criminal. You're a gang member. Yeah. You got a convicted felon. They don't apply to you.
No.
You can be picked up and put on the next train out of here at any moment.
Yeah. I mean, even if you have a green card, your stay here, and it says on the green card, is subject to expiration at any time.
Yeah, I know.
And I'm not advocating for that for green card people. I'm just saying, if it's that way for them, how much less is it for somebody that breaks our laws?
Sick.
Yes.
Okay, listen to this one.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to talk about Judge George O'Toole, because he's in two of these cases somehow. There's 650 district court judges, and somehow like the same 20 judges, you'll notice, will show up in a lot of these cases. Yeah. AFL-CIO v. Enzel. They tried to stop the buyout program at the federal government. The AFL-CIO sued to stop voluntary buyouts. Now, again, this case should have been laughed at. If that's the case, I took a voluntary buyout once when I worked for Best
Businesses
Buy.
do it all the time.
It happens every day. Judge George O'Toole, a Clinton appointee, ruled in favor of Trump. But listen to this.
Yeah.
There's a caveat to it. He ruled that the AFL-CIO, since they didn't represent these workers, had no standing to bring this lawsuit. Now, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Okay, because what you're basically leaving the door open to is he didn't rule on the actual matter.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine if the government literally was told, you cannot offer an employee a buyout, a voluntary buyout.
Yeah.
Here, we're going to give you, I heard 8 months' pay was what they were getting, and like health care for a year.
Yep.
That's your offer. Take it or leave it.
Yeah.
You, the employer, and them, the employee, have no right to enter in a contract like that.
Yeah.
Absurd.
It is.
You could indict every corporation in the world if that goes through.
Yep.
Ridiculous ruling. Ridiculous. Okay, you can rule the AFL-CIO has no standing, and that's fine. But to not rule on the underlying thing means more lawsuits like this are going to come.
I suppose that what the AFL-CIO is saying is that because they're under union contract that they can't be bought out like that. Well,
I don't think they all are, though. I don't think everybody who works in a department is represented by a union. I'm not sure that's true. I think some are and some aren't.
Okay.
Either way.
I mean, if they're not, they certainly have the right to be bought out. But I would argue even for a union employee, you can buy out a contract. It happens in the major leagues.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the time. Happens in the NFL all the time.
There may be a procedural question, but there certainly can happen.
Yeah.
Coaches get bought out. Yeah.
Don't tell me you can't buy out a contract.
That'd be ridiculous.
Yeah.
O'Toole also shows up and also made another interesting ruling in Moe v. Trump. Maria Moe, I think that's a pseudonym, is a trans woman and is now being put in a men's prison because President Trump revoked the federal prison. You get to decide what gender you are. O'Toole ruled in favor of this person, but again, parsed the ruling, saying only this person. It's not a blanket injunction. Once again, totally will be reversed.
Right.
Completely and totally. Once again, no standing for a biological woman or a biological, I don't know what it is. Yeah, it would be a biological man who is now a woman, but is now being transferred to a men's prison because they're a biological male.
Yes.
Again, ridiculous. So this person's being returned to a women's prison.
Yeah.
Sick.
Yep.
What is with the trans stuff?
I don't get it. I don't know if you saw last week, there's not supposed to be boys in women's sports anymore, but here's this track and field dude that beat all the women by 7 seconds. He went and congratulated somebody that was there with his team, and then turned around and watched everybody come across the finish line. Yep, that's fair.
Yeah, no kidding. Schilling v. Trump. Have you heard of this case?
No.
Another trans case. Emily Schilling, a 19-year-old. This is a military case that President Trump. I actually don't think this is accurate. It would be in the Western District of Washington. I wonder how that judge is. Basically arguing that President Trump cannot ban transgenders from the military. And actually, I don't think he did that.
Yeah.
I think it was banning I think it was biological. It was the, how do I put it? You can only be a man or a woman, and it kind of like the prison case. I think that was I don't think he banned transgenders. I think that's the media's spin on it. This case will fall apart about as quickly as anything.
Yeah.
The command, if Bill Clinton can sign "Don't Ask, Don't Tell,"
yes,
which remember a court didn't overrule. It was Obama who changed that when he got in office. If you can tell a gay person, yeah, you got to stay in the closet, how in the world could a trans person even make this case then?
Right.
Impossible.
Yeah.
Totally impossible. So I think that will get tossed. But again, it's going to be a process before that happens. Western District of Washington. I wonder who that might be. Doesn't matter. I don't have to look it up. I'm sure it can.
Right.
USAID facing 8 lawsuits on its dismantling, which is also nonsense because it's still there. The workforce has been cut, and it's now directly under the State Department, where it was kind of its own thing before. But there are 8 different lawsuits being filed against its. I don't even know if you call it its dismantling. What would you call it? They're basically finding garbage.
Yeah.
I mean, really what's going on?
They didn't get rid of it completely. They moved it under the State Department, and they got rid of most of it. You know, I don't know.
Yeah, I can't understand how.
But we want the waste and the fraud, apparently.
I guess so.
We want it to pay for Sesame Street in Iraq. We want it to pay for a transgender opera in Colombia. You know,
Listen to this one.
Yeah.
Pasito v. Trump. This one, so far, there's a temporary injunction. President Trump cut federal funding to refugee resettlement organizations and suspended admitting thousands of refugees into the United States each year. Judge Jamal Whitehead ordered the government to temporarily restore the program and the funding. Why can a judge tell the president to restore a program and the funding?
Yeah.
What if we can create a refugee program, why can't we rescind it?
Exactly. It's like we can't, once we create something, it's there forever.
I guess
that's the way government works. You know that. We can't get rid of a tax. We can't get rid of
You can't get rid of anything.
Yeah.
Escalona v. Noem coalition, where the ACLU is funding this one, is suing to stop the Trump administration from sending, quote, migrants, we all know that's illegal aliens, to the U.S. military base at Guantanamo Bay. What? They can't send them there. All right, I'll tell you what, ACLU, we'll send them to your house. How about that? Why can't they go to a military base?
Right. Well, we could send them to Martha's Vineyard. We know how that'll work out. They'll send them back. We already saw that happen. I don't know.
Sick. Let me move on. New York v. Trump. This is freezing the federal funds to cities and states that won't comply with immigration policy. Judge John McConnell, an Obama appointee, ordered that to be reversed. So, I mean, Trump's appealing, and he'll win it.
Yeah,
they're not entitled to federal funding.
Right.
I mean, they aren't. Sorry. So, how in the world, is that possible there?
Right. Well, I know what in this one, they're trying to. Trump was trying to end the DACA program, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, which protected undocumented immigrants that were being brought here as kids so that they couldn't get deported. Yeah. To reverse that, I don't know. A federal court doesn't have the jurisdiction to do that.
Of course they don't.
Wow. It wanted to deny green cards to individuals that were deemed likely to rely on public assistance as well, which I think is normal. You know, we want to bring people here that are going to innovate, that are going to work hard, that are going to, we don't want to bring in all the people that just want to live off the system. We can't afford that. It's not sustainable.
Yeah, no way.
So
there's several lawsuits about the birthright citizenship. Trump is losing them, and I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you a question. Do you think that makes it to the Supreme Court?
I think it's going to have to, because it need that part of the Constitution is going to need clarification.
Well, yeah, the birthright citizenship is not based on the 14th Amendment. It's based on an 1898 case, U.S. versus ARC. That's where this birthright citizenship came from.
Right, but the argument comes from the 14th Amendment.
True.
Yes.
But I don't... I guess my
because
answer is I don't think
a ruling should never be making a law.
Right. I don't know that that person, Wong Kim Ark, was the Chinese Exclusion Act was specifically what they were suing on over.
Okay.
And then so that got basically overruled, and it was ruled that I don't want to go into the whole kit and caboodle there, but the 14th Amendment does not say what that case said.
No.
Not word for word, not in a strict interpretation. And I think Trump wants to test it.
Yeah.
Now, what's your feeling on if that... So I think it will get to the court. I don't think it'll be for a while.
Yeah.
But what do you think the Supremes do with that? I mean, you're talking about 127 years,
right? Of
so
jurisprudence.
that hasn't really been challenged.
Yeah, Well, I mean, when you look at the 14th Amendment and it talks about being under the control of the jurisdiction thereof, they're not under the jurisdiction of the United States if they don't legally live here. And for children as well, then, they wouldn't, be under that jurisdiction based on the 14th Amendment, if you read it that way. And let's put a little history lesson in it.
But I want to say something too. The intent of the 14th Amendment was really not for immigrants. It was for the children of freed slaves.
Right.
That was really, they're citizens. It was an attempt to define what a citizen was.
That is true.
So, and look, again, I don't think the idea behind it was just anyone who gets to this country and has a kid just automatically, I don't think that was the envision behind it.
Right.
But
let's take a moment and sidestep here. Let's look at how government is set up. All right. You have the legislative branch, which is supposed to make...
Well, and in many ways, they're the weakest.
They are.
Now.
And the executive branch is supposed to enforce the laws, right? The president has a veto power if something is found unconstitutional, but even that now is just like, well, I don't like this, I'm going to veto it.
Yeah. They've gotten around that stuff.
Yeah. The Supreme Court was meant to be the weakest branch of the three. It started in the basement of the Capitol, for crying out loud, right? They didn't even think to build it a separate building.
Well, remember, it was the reign of John Marshall that really established the court. McCulloch v. Maryland, Madison v. Marbury.
Right.
Marshall really enhanced the court's...
Yeah.
I don't know if power is the right word. I mean, it really brought it up to being a co-equal branch of government. But Marshall never went as far as, not even close to what goes on now. Same thing with even the Roger Taney court, which was, they made some absurd, Dred Scott case and some other absurd rulings. You could go all the way through to like the separate but equal, which is another absurd ruling. Totally violates about 9 different amendments.
And then when you move into the early 1900s, you got like Louis Brandeis and Oliver Wendell Holmes.
Holmes was all over the place.
Yeah, but you did have a group of people that.
William O. Douglas.
Yeah.
You can go on to, Hugo Black. There were some people who definitely, but they still didn't do what they do now. I mean, I think the New Deal changed a lot of things because the New Deal did strike down a few things.
Yeah.
They're actually very well thought arguments when you actually read them. It's kind of like the Dobbs decision. If you actually read Justice Alito, he's a great orator.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very well thought out, very well sourced. And if you go to like the decision to remove the NRA, not the NRA gun stuff, but the National Recovery Administration, you understand why they ruled the way they did. Now, I think that the courts have, for whatever reason, blossomed into the absolute final arbiter of every little dispute. And I think that part of that has been a weakened Congress and a strengthened executive.
Yeah.
We've moved in that direction over I would say since FDR.
Yeah.
We've slowly moved into where the executive branch, and I'm including the FBI in that. I'm including the military, the CIA, the FDA, the EPA. We've created all this executive stuff. And what are there, 16 cabinet secretaries now or something like that?
It's
look at how big the
many.
Executive branch is. that the fight between the legislative and the executive branch, instead of being fought out by vetoing and overruling vetoes and things like that, it's being fought in the courts now.
Yeah.
So it's a total change from, and I've chastised conservatives about this. Wanted to sue over Obamacare, sue Biden over this and that. It's not the proper way to do so.
Pass a law.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want Biden to cancel student debt? Pass a law that says he can't. Even Nancy Pelosi said that Biden overstepped his authority. They could probably get 400 votes for that. Take your own power back.
Yeah. Exactly.
And they just won't do it. They're just wusses. They're wusses when it comes to the national security state, any of that stuff as well. But I want to get back to the 14th Amendment, Jay. That goes in front of the court. What do you think happens?
Oh boy. I think they're probably going to keep a pretty conservative interpretation of it for the most part. You might get an Alito or Thomas, to speak out and go with, that this applies to illegal immigration, but I think you're going to be hard pressed. Of course, your liberal judges will not go with it, and I think that you're probably going to see John Roberts follow suit, unfortunately.
I would say, well, here's the thing. The Roberts court, and I respect Justice Roberts, but I think he's wrong on the way he looks at. Roberts seems to really care what the public thinks about the court.
Yes.
I think your Alitos and your Thomases,
they don't care.
They couldn't care less.
Yeah.
Their job's to make rulings, not win elections.
Right.
Roberts seems real sensitive to that. And I think he's more of a consensus builder. That's why you see baby steps in some of this stuff, which I think is a problem because it's not his job. His job's not to
is it constitutional
look bipartisan.
Or not.
I mean,
that's it.
And like you look at like the Trump immunity case where the court struck down the most extreme thing, but they really didn't resolve it. They really didn't. To me, they really didn't put an end to it.
Right.
And I feel like the same thing would happen here. If they change something on the 14th Amendment, they're not going to make a big change.
Right.
It's going to be a minor change to it. Some sort of small thing. I can't see Trump getting it because I think Amy Barrett would be a swing vote on that too.
I do too.
I mean, I think you've got the four solid ones. I think Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Alito. I mean, I don't know that they always will go 100%. Kavanaugh's gone off on his own. Gorsuch has been pretty solid.
Yeah.
But, and then with some other cases, I actually think you may see 8-1 rulings on. I mean, Elena Kagan has been pretty consistent on courts blocking executive authority. Sotomayor, I think, is more of a swing vote.
Yeah.
Jackson, I'm not sure. She doesn't know what a man and a woman is, so I'm not sure she knows anything. But, like, for example, there was an interview she did about a year or two ago, and she talked about frustration at these district judges, trying to stop everything and adjunct everything, and then groups suing on all this stuff. She might be a vote with the Republicans on some of this stuff.
Yeah.
Sotomayor might be on the more extreme stuff, but I think on your basic liberal stuff, she's going to vote against them.
Yeah.
But I worry about the Roberts Court. I mean, I worry. I know on paper it looks like, how do the conservatives ever lose anything if we're really going to interpret law here and really set a strong precedent? But I just get the feeling that Roberts is one of these guys who does not make big change. Although he did vote for the Dobbs thing.
He did.
I got to give him that. But everything else seems incremental. And that is concerning because it leaves the door open to the rest of this crap. Like, you knock it down 20%, why not? Your job's to interpret the law, not get praised by MSNBC.
Right.
So it's just, I don't know. I'm not as confident with the Supreme Court as some people on the right are right now.
I'm definitely not.
I mean, the immigration stuff, Trump's going to win.
Yeah.
He's going to win that handily. None of the conservatives will break on that. And like I said, somebody like Kagan might vote yes. I mean, I think that's pretty well taken care of. But some of this other stuff, even the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
I still, and I mean, you're going to see a flurry of stuff with the Department of Education. The American Federation of Teachers has already filed a lawsuit.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't understand it. I don't understand what they're filing a lawsuit to. What jurisdiction do they have? Why are they in a position to decide whether we have a Department of Education or not?
They're not. They should not have standing. I
don't know, Jay.
Yeah.
And I mean, when I say Trump's going to win all the immigration stuff, his authority is going to be upheld. But the question becomes, how far does it go? There's lawsuits right now.
Yeah.
San Francisco, the city has a lawsuit because Trump's trying to end sanctuary cities.
Yeah.
And they're basically saying, no, you can't. Well, you're not entitled to, he's freezing their money.
Yeah.
You're not entitled to federal money. But does the court find some middle ground? Do they find some way where it's a 60% Trump win when it should be 100? Should be thrown out.
Yeah, it should be.
And that just worries me with the court. I mean, it just, I don't know. And something has to be done. And again, part of this is a weak Congress. Part of this is,
yes,
this idea that you can bring a lawsuit, that one judge somewhere can stop policy for the entire country. I mean, why doesn't Congress do something about that? And say, okay, no more of this. No more cherry picking. How does a group in Washington, how do they get a judge out in Washington State? Why are you filing it there?
Yeah, I don't understand. If your group is headquartered in a certain state, I guess that's where you should file it. But if you're not headquartered there and you're going to someplace you're not headquartered, it's still a federal judge does not have jurisdiction over a nationwide issue. They just do not have it. So the fact that they're trying to put in these injunctions over something that affects people that aren't in their district, it should never be allowed. And that's something I think the Supreme Court maybe needs to revisit.
I'm worried that Trump's going to lose a lot of this budget stuff. I mean, he's lost some of it already. I mean,
yeah.
The lawsuits are getting. I mean, you reverse of. So what? The justices can decide where money gets spent now. Where's that in the Constitution? I don't recall seeing that
nowhere.
Anywhere.
That should be directed first. The House of Representatives holds the purse strings. They're the ones who should be deciding all this stuff.
Well, I mean, take a preliminary injunction here. American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education filed a lawsuit. The Trump administration cut grants. These alleged grants allegedly helped place teachers in underserved schools, whatever that means. They sued the education department for terminating the grants. Judge Julie Rubin, a Biden appointee, ordered the administration to reinstate the grants. Well, why do they have any standing to reinstate anybody? I mean, I just, this is getting, And I'll tell you what, the more this.
Yeah.
I don't even. Yeah, there's so many. I shouldn't laugh about it, but.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You've got to have so many lawyers on retainer. I mean, I'm sure Justice Department is filled with lawyers, but
of course, but this is not
that you're keeping them busy on this stuff instead of prosecuting criminals.
Yeah, I mean, it would be the departments that would make these arguments. I mean. Yeah, anyhow, I want to get also to the whole, we got a new executive order too about elections.
Yes.
And having only citizens, which you'd think would be no big deal, that only Americans can actually vote for Americans.
Mm-hmm.
But that's controversial, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we should just mail ballots to Venezuela and China and then let them vote. Let's just mail them out. Put some drop boxes in Kuala Lumpur.
Talk about foreign interference in our elections. My goodness.
Oh, I know.
I think election stuff, that's going to be, you know what? That's going to be tough for Trump not to prevail on. I wanted to share this Indiana voter ID case, Crawford versus Marion County. The court at this time, this was in 2008, that upheld photo ID for voting. It was, well, we're going back a few years here. So Thomas, Alito, Scalia, Roberts, Anthony Kennedy, and John Paul Stevens voted in the positive. The responses, of course, David Souter,
right,
Ruth Ginsburg, and Stephen Breyer were the dissents. Souter, I just love what he has to say, that Indiana, the state of Indiana, had the burden of producing actual evidence of the existence of fraud. So the fraud had to happen.
Right.
We had to have an election with fraud before Indiana could take any action. The burden of proof was on them, I guess, to do that before imposing an unreasonable burden on voters who are poor and old. Justice Breyer said something similar, that it was requiring an ID was too burdensome and costly for low-income and elderly voters. Well, how do they take money out of their bank account?
Right.
How does an elderly person get Social Security? Don't you got to go down to the office with an ID and your Social Security card?
I guess so.
That's what my dad had to do.
Is it?
Yeah. Why is that not burdensome then? Well, it's your Social Security check. Well, I don't know who you are. I guess you're not getting it.
Well,
but it's too burdensome to have it to vote.
Right. But you'd show me somebody that doesn't have ID already. You know,
that is a citizen here.
Yeah,
I can't find one.
Yeah,
you won't find one. You won't find one anywhere. Trust me, I sell pull tabs. Believe me, when they win, they all have an ID. So that must be discriminatory then.
Yes.
Now but that's another question here though. Gets the Supreme Court. What do they rule on that? Now, this is only over federal elections. President Trump made that clear in his executive order. That's all he has jurisdiction over.
Right.
Or the Federal Election Commission. But you tell me, how does that come out? I mean, I think the courts uphold it, but again, how far do they go?
Oh, I think that it's I think they say, illegals can't vote in federal elections. When it comes to requiring voter ID, on the other hand, I don't know. It should be within Trump's abilities to dictate what happens, what the requirements are, so long as it doesn't violate the Constitution.
But the courts have already ruled that federal ID laws are constitutional.
Right.
But that was for a state to do it. Does that matter?
It shouldn't. Whether it's a state election or federal election, why should one be able to do something that others can't?
Ask New York City.
Right.
Ask L.A.
Yeah, and when I say that, I mean in being restrictive. You can always, when a law is made, you can always make a law that is more restrictive locally, but you can't make one that's more liberal. You have to use the existing law as your base. So by those standards, you shouldn't be able to,
Can I ask an irrelevant question? I have to get your opinion on this.
Okay.
When are we going to see our tax bill and stuff? When's that actually going to come?
Oh, goodness.
I mean, the Senate, from the rumors I hear, doesn't think they can pass a bill till July.
Yeah, well, that's probably true.
I mean, the one big, beautiful bill, which is not something I like, the House majority is very slim.
Yeah.
There's 2 special elections in Florida that are going to happen. Ellie Stefanik just pulled out of being the UN ambassador because they don't want to have another special election. The Republicans will win those in Florida.
Yeah.
I think people are watching the margins, but I think they'll prevail on those. This, I don't want to say lack of focus on it, but what else is Congress up to right now that they're not working on this? You're not hearing anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah. All I hear is, we're creating this beautiful big bill, but they don't tell us what is going into this beautiful big bill.
I haven't seen a committee hearing.
Nope.
I haven't seen. I worry that the House and the Senate will pass 2 different things. Actually, they can't. It has to originate in the House.
Yep.
For this.
All right. Because it's a budget.
Yeah, but I am worried because if we don't pass a bill till January, it could be months before anybody feels an effect from it.
Right.
And then that's a problem.
Yeah. It certainly is, and I know they say, well, it'll all get worked out in reconciliation. Well, how about we just
stop
pass
doing
the right thing the first time, Why
are the Republicans so divided on this? I'm sort of just, you've got the Republican old guard, the national security deep state Republicans. You've got the Tea Party libertarian guys, and you've got the MAGA guys. You've got 3 different kind of factions. But come on tax cuts, we're all kind of all of them want lower taxes to some extent, right? I mean, I think that's pretty darn close there. Yep. They all want. Maybe I should say they all want spending cuts. Maybe to different degrees, but I think that cutting bloated defense spending is probably going to be tough, especially in the Senate.
Yeah.
But other places shouldn't be so hard.
Yeah.
There's no bill to end the education department. There's no bill to end USAID. I tried to find them. There's nothing there. So I feel like Trump is I don't want to say being hung out to dry because it's way too early to say something like that. But it's getting a little bit concerning that we're not moving. Congress isn't moving.
Yeah.
There's certain things they still have to do despite their dysfunction.
Yes.
So
that's true.
I mean, And that continuing resolution thing, they could have passed that 2 months ago. I don't know why that took forever to do. They just have to wait for a deadline. They just won't get off their arse until they absolutely have to do it. It's like the Minnesota legislature. Until it adjourns tomorrow, we're not going to do anything.
Right.
So, I don't know. I mean, are you getting nervous about it, or am I just way too paranoid?
No, I'm nervous, and that was the worry about doing one big bill, is that it just will not be able to move fast enough, and being able to get enough people that will support this. I mean, it's going to be tough.
Remember, in 2017, it didn't happen till October.
Right.
I mean, that's a long time. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's something. They're going to get something. I mean, it's going to happen, but boy, I don't know. And then I worry about the small majorities. You have to buy some votes.
Yeah.
And why aren't we targeting? Why aren't we putting pressure on those 18 House Democrats that are in Trump districts?
Right.
Why aren't we?
We should be.
Why aren't we targeting those senators from Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, all these states that Trump won?
Yeah.
I mean, there should be. John Fetterman might be a vote for some things, but outside of him, I don't see where. We're pushing them to.
We're not, but I mean, they are voting in lockstep too. I mean, they have almost no defectors ever.
But there got to be consequences for that. And I can't believe in a state like Georgia, where the Dems are in a mess of trouble in some states.
Yes,
you look at those Senate seats: Georgia, New Hampshire,
Arizona.
Michigan. I think Mark Warner's in trouble in Virginia. I mean,
he could be.
If Glenn Youngkin decides to run, I think that'll be a really tough race for him.
That will be.
So, I mean, you can't claim you're moderate and never vote for something else. So, I don't know. I mean, that's the problem with one big bill, too. They'll all come up with it's a Republican bill. I'll come up with a reason to not vote for it. Yeah. So I don't know. I'm getting nervous. But this Trump lawfare stuff, Jay, I'll tell you, is there any way to expedite this stuff? How do you expedite this stuff? Can you take something right to the Supreme Court? Does it have to go through all these channels? I mean, I don't even know the answer.
Yeah, I guess I really don't know. I know you have to have standing to bring a case, but usually it has to go through all the appeal process and all that. To my knowledge, things usually do, anyways.
Now, how about this? Should Trump defy some of the orders? I mean, what's a judge going to do? Trump wants to deport people. What are they going to do to him?
Right. Well, he certainly. I mean, that's one reason that the Supreme Court is seen as the weakest branch, is because they don't have teeth. Yeah. They can't impose a penalty. They can just say, "Here's what we rule," and stop it.
Yeah, well.
That's really it. But on the other hand, that's a really bad precedent, because you have Joe Biden that kept trying to go around and do the student loan forgiveness, even though he was shut down every single time. He would come back with something else.
Instead of working with Congress to pass a law, which would have passed.
Yeah.
Something would have passed on that, I think. It's just me.
Yeah. Well, just to answer your question so that I'm giving a complete answer here. Yes, a case can go directly to the Supreme Court, but it's rare. There's typically two situations in which that happens. One is original jurisdiction. So in specific types of cases, such as disputes between states or cases involving foreign diplomats, those can be filed directly with the Supreme Court without going to the lower courts. The other is called certiorari. I don't know if I said that right.
I'm guessing you didn't. You butchered that probably as bad as I did.
Yeah. So Well, most cases have to go through the appellate courts. The court has the discretion to hear certain cases directly, and it's done through this process where the court decides to review a case that has already been decided in a lower court. However, the court usually only accepts a small percentage of cases that are petitioned for certiorari. Certiorari. You think they could choose an easier word? I don't know.
No, they've all got to prove that they're so much smarter than you.
Right.
That's what they. Yeah, that stinks. That all just sucks.
Yeah. So that's the answer.
No, but you know what? You're right about that, and I probably shouldn't advocate for Trump to ignore it because.
Yeah.
Then I'm setting it that the next person could just do the same.
And that the Supreme Court is really ineffectual at that point. It doesn't matter what they say, you just go do what you want, and that's bad.
I guess the question that I have is if a judge is saying to the President of the United States, you can't enforce the law, which is basically what, in the case of immigration, they're saying, what recourse is against that judge? I mean, I keep coming back to, I would be, if this were in front of me, 9 out of 10 of these would be, this doesn't belong in the courts.
Right.
Call your congressman.
Yeah. And that's the trouble that we've been running into is you can impeach a judge. I mean, that is constitutionally the way that for malfeasance and whatever you would do such a thing. But then you have John Roberts who is like, oh, hold on now. We can't be impeaching judges. We have to use the appellate process. I'm sorry, but they're screwing everything up because so many of these judges have agendas and they're legislating from the bench.
Okay, but here's the problem with that, though. I agree with you. But here's the problem with that. If a conservative comes and asserts the Constitution, they'll be charged. The people on the left will say, "Oh, well, that judge is just putting their opinion in it. They're legislating."
Yeah.
That's the way the left sees it. They see it as either the conservatives legislating or the liberals legislating. You and I see it as the liberals legislating and the conservative is interpreting the Constitution.
Right.
So how would everybody would just get impeached at that point? But I disagree with Justice Roberts, though. I mean, the idea that the only way you can remove a judge basically is if they commit a felony. I mean, come on, that's absurd.
Yeah.
I mean, that's totally absurd. We've expelled people from Congress for the last. I mean, it's just, I don't know. I think it's again, maybe one of the things that has to be talked about is how long like a judge can serve somewhere.
Yeah.
I mean, kind of like the executive branch. I mean, why is it that Biden can appoint all these judges and it's like the State Department with the deep staters. They all just get to stay there. And I'm not saying this necessarily because I don't like how they're ruling. It's just a judge should be smart enough to say, look, I agree with you politically, but you can't run to me to get your agenda passed. Like I said, you call your governor, you call your congressman. That's what they're there for, not me. And yet, we don't have that.
No. I mean, everything's messed up in our political system. If we just went back to the constitutional standards and followed what the procedure is for each branch of government, we would be in pretty good shape.
Yeah. When was the last time Congress actually declared war? I don't even want to know that. 1941, probably.
Well,
I mean, officially.
Yeah, that's maybe true.
I'm sorry, but, the Tonkin Gulf Resolution does not exactly fit. And just a blanket quote, war on terror, that doesn't mean anything either. So yeah, it has probably been since 1941 that an actual, because I mean, you go back to the first Gulf War, That was not a declaration of war either. It was an authorization for the use of force to remove Iraq from Kuwait.
Yes.
So, very different. So,
yeah, I mean, the last time that we declared war was the day after Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. 12/8/41.
Yes. Wow. And then quickly followed. Actually, well, it's weird the way they phrase it here, but it was followed by declarations of war on Germany and Italy on December 11th.
Yes, they were separate. The December 8th one was just for Japan. Germany and Italy declared war on us after that, and then we declared it against them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Huh. Crazy.
Yes.
So we're all screwed up again.
Yes,
I've been
indeed.
in such a good mood since, November 5th.
Yes.
And so, coincidentally, your birthday, right?
Yes.
November.
It was the best birthday present I think I've ever received in my entire life.
I've told you this before, and I think I told you this, that you share a birthday with President Harding.
Yeah.
And President Harding was elected president on his 55th birthday. It was that day in 1920
Wow.
that he was elected. Yep. So,
maybe I should run for president in 2028, and I could follow in Harding's footsteps. Then.
Why not?
Yeah.
Why not, Jay? I'll tell you
I'm
what.
sure it would work out great.
You know where I'd be the most miserable? If I had to sit in the U.S. Senate.
Oh.
That's the place where I'd be. Imagine like Trump sitting there. I mean, I thought to myself, I remember when there was this internet rumor that DeSantis was going to appoint himself in the Senate. And I said, look, say what you want about DeSantis. I think he knows how miserable. He's like Trump. He's a born leader.
Yeah.
Okay. And I'm telling you, Ron DeSantis has to know how miserable he'd be in the Senate.
Yeah.
He just has got to know how awful that would be.
Yeah.
So I never believed that for a second. But yeah, U.S. Senate, oh, goodness. I don't even want to say on the air what I'd rather do than serve in the Senate. We just won't get that disgusting, okay? So yeah, ugly, just ugly. Just all these, and this cherry picking judges. I mean, it's just, I don't know, Jay. It's bad all around. But you know what? You know what's good?
What?
I got to tell you what's good. It's coming to the end of another show, and for your listening enjoyment, ladies and gentlemen. Jet flying, limousine riding, wheeling, dealing, son of a gun. Jay, you got to give us words of wisdom. And don't use the word injunction. Don't use the sustainability. Please just don't use don't use any of those words. But give us some words of wisdom.
I think of that old cartoon. It was what? Conjunction, junction. We could say, injunction, junction, what's your function? You remember that? That's old Schoolhouse Rock stuff?
No, that's bad.
Oh. I'll stay away from it then. No injunctions. We live in a society where justice is just not what it used to be. It almost seems like, quote unquote, justice can be bought. It's not that there's necessarily money switching hands. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that there's bribery happening, although I'm sure in some places there are. There are definitely political favors and things like that. We see where a judge gets a case or two and they have a child that is directly related to an organization that deals in the same kind of subject matter as that case, and the judge happens to be on the side that their child would be on. We see, people angling for becoming Supreme Court judges or whatever, and there is such a distortion of what true justice is. Yes, that those that are victimized by crime are made whole. That those that are poor, that are destitute, get their fair day in court. Doesn't mean they win. It really depends what the facts of the case are. It means that from a Supreme Court perspective, that you follow the Constitution and you grant the powers to the executive power that are due it, and you grant the powers to the legislative branch that are due it. You don't muddy things up. You don't twist things up. But you stand for those who are being wronged by somebody else. So long as they don't have it coming, right? They haven't broken a law themselves. They haven't done something to injure another person or debilitate another person. We've got to figure this out. We cannot continue down this road where we allow injustice to be called justice, because it's not justice, not in the least. So what do? We need, even at this level, a lot more lawyers that are conservative to run for judgeships. We need to be able to pick out which judges are passing the policies that are destroying this nation, which ones turn a blind eye to justice, to put an agenda, to legislate an agenda from the bench. And we have to say enough. Enough to where those of you that are conservative attorneys are running for the judgeships. We can't have these judges that are all appointed by Tim Walz here in this state that run election cycle after election cycle after election cycle. And when it comes to federal judges, there's not a lot we can do except elect a president that is going to do his homework in putting in judges that put true justice first and are willing to stand. Those really are our options. And I guess every day in how we act with one another, we must use justice. We must stand for justice, and we must never applaud injustice. We must speak up, because silence equals consent. And when we see something being done wrong, it's our duty, our responsibility to speak out about it. If you're interested in starting a blog, starting a podcast like us, talking to people in this state about what's going on in your county, in your city, in your school district, what's happening at St. Paul, why don't you get a hold of us? COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. COMMsolutionsMN@gmail.com. We would love to help you get started. We need a society where we will walk justly. Justice is important. But it's not social justice. It's not politically motivated justice. It is true justice. And until we get our hands around that again, we will have this struggle. So we're counting on you to get in the game. We're counting on you to raise your voice. Because we've done our part. And we love you, Minnesota. But now it's your turn to get to work.